Hello, everybody. Welcome to Who the Hell Asked. I'm your host, Slade, along with my good co-host and great friend, Byron.
Hello.
All right, so today we're not going to be going over the news cycle for the previous week because outside of Pyra and Metro Big and Smash and some acquisitions, one in particular Byron's upset about in terms
No, I'm
of
not,
Fall
not
Guys.
upset, but but we have a tier. We have another tier list for you.
Yeah,
Love
so we're
tier
gonna
list.
make a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Courses tier list today. 'Cause
Yes,
I say
sirree.
this was pretty much a dry week for news.
Yep. We got 48 tracks to cover. So let's just start off. Let's just go from up to down, left to right. Let's just start with Mario Kart Stadium.
Okay, before we get started, I just want to iterate that this is going to be obviously very subjective. Like
Yes.
we talked a little bit about beforehand, like what we're going to grade the tracks on based off like fun, the music, as well as skill expression, kind of like NISC and stuff like that. But in general, like we're not going to agree on everything. So we're actually going to have two separate tier lists. We're going to have Byron's tier list. We're going to have my tier list. But we're still going to discuss each other's placements and whatnot and try to get into each other's like thoughts and opinions.
Yeah. So we have 5 tiers: top tier, high tier, mid tier, trash, low tier, trash tier.
I actually just called it bottom tier because I don't think any of these courses are like quote unquote like trash.
All right,
But
I'll change the name.
obviously some of them just aren't like super great. I don't know. We'll get into it.
Yeah, alrighty. So Mario Kart Stadium. It is about I'm tempted to put it in either mid or low tier. I'm half tempted to put it in mid. It's just like it's the starting track, the starter track. Those are generally like they're not trash, but they're not like the most exciting track.
Yeah, it's definitely a very basic kind of introduce you to like the game, the mechanics, and all that kind of track. That's how they're designed in general.
Yeah.
I think this is actually one of the better starting tracks in the entire series. But as I said, mid tier seems to be a pretty solid spot for it. What do you think about like the music or anything like that involving with the track?
Yeah.
No, I'm asking you, what do you think about it?
The music, it's all right. It's all right. Nothing too special. Where do you put it on your list?
Okay, so I am actually going to go get Byron here. I'm going to put it in high tier.
Oh.
I think there's really good skill expression here because you have the NISC on the second turn, which allows you to like take it in really sharp and go over like the patch of grass and the pipes, which I think is really cool. You also have a NISC following shortly after that with the ramp, to where if you time a drift, you could like boost hop onto the ramp without having to have a mushroom, and then you can just trick off that. And not only that, I think the music's actually really great, and I just like the track's design overall. I think it just does a fantastic job of introducing players to the series, while at the same time giving enough interesting design to like allow people to get creative with shortcuts and stuff like that. So all in all, I think it's a really good starting track.
That's fair. And well, obviously Slade has gotten recently more into the speed running side of Mario Kart.
So let's go ahead and move on to our next level. Water Park.
I don't know. I'm just feeling mid tier again for Water Park. It's all right. It's a decent water track. I think it is the only. No, well, it is the only, I think, brand new water track in this game.
Yeah, because Dolphin Shoals is a returning track.
I like the theme of the track, the fact that it's like a water park. Water park.
Yeah, it's like I think it's based off of Peanut Park from Super Mario Sunshine, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah,
I like it. It's a pretty decent track.
So I have it mid tier. Now these may change throughout the video, but right now I have it at mid tier. Slade, where do you have it?
Okay, I'm actually going to put this in mid tier as well.
Okay.
The music absolutely slaps here, but I feel like outside of that, there isn't really a whole lot that I find super interesting about the track.
Yeah.
It's not a bad track per se, but it's not like a great one either. Like honestly, mid tier is going to be where I place tracks that I don't have like a oh that's great or oh that's a bad track like general opinion. It's just going to be like it's a track. It's a nice track. And I just want to iterate that like all of the tracks in this game looked absolutely stunning and gorgeous anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
This is really just based off of racing on them in general. So, yeah, it's a solid track. It's a solid track.
Alrighty. Sweet Sweet Canyon. I'm sorry? Another mid tier. What?
I'm starting to see a theme here.
It's like water park in that I love the theming and the track is alright to race on. It's alright. It's alright to race on. What do you think, Slade?
I'm actually going to agree there. I think in some ways where you have the two split paths and whatnot towards the second half of the track, it's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You also have like the shroom cut at the end that you could take. And
through the donut, I believe.
Yeah, and like you said, the theme of the track is pretty cool for the most part. You know, it's got like candies, chocolate, and all that jazz.
Yeah.
It's sweet.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool, but overall, I just don't think there's anything at this track I would point to that particularly stands out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In terms of racing on it, that you can't find on a lot of the other tracks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to Thwomp Ruins.
All right, Thwomp Ruins, low tier.
Ooh, really?
Low tier, yeah. Like, it's an okay track. I've never had the great. Now, partially, it's the fact that I've never had the greatest of luck on this track. Or I always get screwed over at the very end. So there may be some bias, but yeah.
Well, that's what these tier lists are all about. It's about being biased, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to disagree with you here. I think Thwomp Ruins is a high tier track. So one thing I really like about Thwomp Ruins is there's a lot of like things you could do with your drift to like, as I said, I'm a big fan of NISC in general. And there's one right at the start to where you could hop over the grass to like the ramp. And there's also the cut at the end where if you take the turn sharper, you actually go off the track onto like an off-track ramp.
But that's where I always get fucked on, though.
Well, I'll get good at it. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, I'm good at taking the cut. It's just sometimes that red shell or green shell just fucks you right over.
I also like the middle section where you just get out of like the tunnel and you have either the ramp at the middle, which isn't active until lap 3. And then you have like the walls on the side as well as you go into the pool below. I just think that's a really cool part of the track. And I really like the lines for this track in terms of like doing time trials and whatnot. I just think it's a really solid track overall. I really like it.
It's a fine track. It's probably on the high end for me of low tier, but because there's another track, Mario Circuit. Probably one of my least favorite Mario Circuits of them all in the whole series. It's just I don't know. It's not as like exciting as Mario Kart DS's or as like Mario-y, I guess, as the GameCube Mario Circuit. So
I suppose.
low tier. So low tier for me on that list.
So I'm going to disagree with that. I think it's a mid-tier track overall. I think with either like golden shroom, stars, or like any sort of like boosting item, you can get some really crazy like sharp turns on this track that skips a lot of like horse. But even without those, I think it does a really good job of like teaching players how to like drift, stuff like that. I also think the track has fantastic music. I'm a really big fan. I just like the track in general. I don't think it's a bad track, but I don't think it's like one of the great tracks of this game either.
Look,
So
I'm not excited to race on Mario Circuit. Like, there are way better Mario Circuits. There's a bit of a better Mario Circuit in this game. Spoilers.
That's it. I just think it's a solid mid tier. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's great either. It's just there. All right, Toad Harbor.
High tier. High tier. Love this track. It's great theming. It's a fun track to play on. There's a couple of chaotic parts which can make things just a little interesting. And I've generally had good luck on this track. I've generally had good luck. I don't know where you stand on this.
Okay, so I'm actually going to take it a step further. I think this is going to be our first top tier track.
Oh,
I really like Toad Harbor because this track gives you a lot of options in terms of where you want to race and what you want to do. You could, at the very beginning, you could go on the ramps on the left side to get the boost ramp with the single item. You could go above the kind of rafters and stuff like that immediately after that, or you could go below and take like the sharper turn. You have the choice of going left or right at the cut, or you could go above to the right, or you could just stay below to the left and get like the double item. As I said, this course is what I would call really, really great design in terms of decision making. It just allows you to make decisions. And like, I think that's a really great thing in Mario Kart because there's a way like you could do that like really well. And then there's ways that this game does it that's not like not so well. We'll go into that a little bit later. But
we'll go into that a little bit. Okay, but we both think it's a good track. You just think it's like a top tier track.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of the touches. I think it's on it's going to be on my lower end of top tier, but I definitely think it's a top tier track.
Okay,
so
interesting choice. Interesting choice. Twisted Mansion, mid tier.
Interesting.
Mid tier. It's all right. There's not very many like spooky like ghost themed tracks. So like I will always give a thumbs up to like a spooky like mansion themed track. It's all right. Love the theming of the track, but it's an all right track to race on in my opinion. It's all right.
That's fair enough.
Nothing special.
All right, so gonna slightly disagree there. I'm actually gonna put this in high tier, and I'm gonna put it above Thwomp Ruins, but behind Mario Kart Stadium.
Interesting.
The reasoning for this is I think this is another course that like rewards like really good fundamental Mario Kart driving. You have the mushroom cut at the very beginning, which is pretty much one of the two only comeback areas of the track. There's also like the grass patch right before the end. I really like that, you have the decision between taking one path or the other towards the middle of the track. I guess Sweet Sweet kind of has that similar thing, but what sets it apart for Sweet Sweet for me is it also rewards people who can glide with their carts really well. So if you take the top path, it actually ends up being quicker than the bottom path towards the end.
For some reason, though, I've never been able to get that.
And then if you get really tight drifts on this track, it's ultimately faster overall. But it can also be really punishing if, like, you drive into the wall or you're not driving tight enough, and then, like, one of the ghost things that hammers you down at the very end.
AKA getting pancaked.
Yeah, getting pancaked. So I think this is a really good, simple, basic track done really well.
Yeah.
And I just like the theme overall. I just think it's a really good track.
That's fair. I got another low tier, Shy Guy Falls. I'm sorry, this track just doesn't excite me. Like it's an okay track. There's nothing really special, and like the only thing that redeems this for me a little bit is that like it's a Shy Guy themed track. There's not that many of them, and a friend of ours, Steeler, made this track hilarious because he kept falling into the gaps on this track.
The gaps are so brutal if you get hit by something.
Yeah. Very slim chance you fall into those gaps.
So this is going to be the bottom of mid tier for me, but I do think it's at least mid tier. I think that the track's pretty decent overall. I think there is, past the beginning section, past the waterfall, there's some skill expression in terms of both gliding as well as like making the cut. If you're a really ballsy player who's also really good at the game, there's the NISC where you would usually take the mushroom cut at the end, but it's like extremely difficult, and pretty much nobody outside of absolutely insane players go for that. But overall, I think it's a fairly solid track. I don't particularly care for the music or the track itself one way or the other, but I definitely don't think it's a low tier track because I think there's enough there that makes it interesting enough. Like with the just right after the beginning ramp, there's the waterfall, like with the boost panels and all that.
Yeah,
Then you have the mechanic with the waterfall itself into the jump. That if you like lay down an item, it'll slowly go down the waterfall.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a funny thing you can do. I'll give the track that.
There's a lot of really interesting things that Shy Guy Fall does, in my opinion.
Mm.
So I don't necessarily think it should be called a like low tier or a bad track in general. But for those of you watching up until this point so far, spoilers, you're gonna find a lot of my tracks in mid tier. But that should be how most tier lists go anyway, because it's supposed to be the average of all the tracks in the game.
All right.
So
potential controversial take. Sunshine Airport is.
Well, we knew this was going to go there because it's your favorite track.
Tier. Great theme.
Okay.
I've always had a fun time on the track. Mm-hmm. It's something I don't think has ever been done in Mario Kart. A fucking airport? That's incredible. Great music. It's just fun. It's a fun track. It's just fun. Always had fun on this track. It's one of my favorite tracks in this game.
Not too much controversy here. This is either bottom of top tier or top of high tier for me. I'm going to go ahead and put it at bottom of top tier for now. I also think this is a fantastic track. You have a lot of skill expression with turns literally right at the start. And it also gives you options. You can take the ramp into the middle, straight into the airplane. And then you can kind of get like items and stuff like that. Or you could go down below, take the turn really sharp to, go as fast as possible. Got to go fast. Or you could even take it wide and go for the double item box on the bottom. That's on the far left side of the plane. You also have a miniature cut that honestly is probably never worth taking. But I mean, the option's there if you have like rooms.
Yeah, don't take it. Don't take it.
Your shrooms are better spent elsewhere.
It's not worth it, ladies and gentlemen. It's not worth it.
But it's there. The option's there. I really like after you take the ramp and whatnot, you have like the turn into like the big ramp where you can fly over the airplanes that are flying, left and right in the screen. And if you even land on top of one of the airplanes, you can trick off of it. And I think that's super cool.
The one thing that I don't like about this track that has surprisingly not been fixed, towards the end of the track when you glide down to the airport, back to the finish line. The music glitches out.
It does that from the first ramp into the large turn into the large scale ramp. The music just cuts there. And
why? That's so weird.
But that's kind of like a minor nitpick. I still think the track's great overall.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm going to put it there in top tier for now. And depending on what other tracks we have, it might be bumped down to high tier. But I think it's better than, Mario Kart Stadium, Twisted Mansion, Swamp Ruins. Enough so to where I'd put it in a tier above it.
Yeah. I like Dolphin Shoals more than Shy Guy Falls. And a little bit more than Mario Circuit. But I still think Dolphin Shoals is low tier. It's a cool track. It's just... I've never had good luck here. It's an okay track. The music's fine. The dolphin section at the beginning where you're jumping through the rings as the dolphins are, that's cool. And maybe riding the eel. But that's about it. But it is on the higher end of low tier for me, anyways.
Okay, so where I'm going to place Dolphin Shoals is the bottom of mid tier, maybe even top of low tier.
Okay.
I think that it kind of falls to that whole underwater level kind of syndrome that a lot of games seem to really struggle with.
Yeah.
I think that the midsection right before the eels is a very good section because like you could either take the ramp to the right, you could go to the left, you could kind of trick off the airflow
Yeah.
and all that. I think that's really cool. Running the eel is really cool, but I think the majority of the rest of the track is kind of just really not all that terribly interesting overall.
Yeah.
And I don't really think it lends well to Mario Kart and how it's played in general.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't think it's a bad track. I just think it's an okay track. It's an okay track. You know, I'm going to put it above Shy Guy Falls, actually. Because I do think it's better than Shy Guy Falls.
Yeah.
But overall, these are probably two tracks that, depending on what else we see in mid-tier, I could definitely bump down.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to change Mario Circuit to be above Sweet Sweet, but not above Waterport.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I made a change while you were talking. I basically reordered mid-tier.
Oh, okay.
Electrodrome. Welcome to the mid-tier party. Welcome to the mid-tier. If we had done this like a year or two ago, low tier. I have grown to appreciate this track, Electrodrome, a bit more. It's a cool track, fun atmosphere. Just fuck getting hit with a shell when you're about to, right out of the gate. Like lap 2, somebody hits you with like a shell when you're gliding. Oh, it's the worst.
All right, so gonna go against the grain here. I'm putting this at the top of high tier. I think Electrodrome overall is a fantastic fucking track. I really love the skill expression in terms of like coming off the glider. You can get like 2 coins right off the bat.
Yeah.
If you like do a really good job pulling up with the glide. I also really like the turns, and obviously gives you the choice between 2 separate paths overall.
Yeah, the choice between the pink path and the green path.
Yeah, it's a green path, and I just think that the theme for the track really hard carries. I think that overall, it's just a really fantastic track. I don't think you go wrong with it. I was tempted to put it in top tier, but I don't think it's quite that good. But overall, I think it's a fairly solid track.
Yeah, it's a good track. It's a good track. Like if it's on there and like none of like my high or top tiers are on there, I'll pick it.
Yeah.
It's not a bad choice. Not a bad track. Mount Wario high tier. Love the track. Love the theming. You're going downhill like you're skiing or snowboarding. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a sections track, and I've grown to like the sections tracks, actually, surprisingly. And like, this is probably one of the best section tracks in Mario Kart. Because it just works. It's like a ski mountain. So, like, it works being a sections track.
Right. Okay, so I'm actually going to disagree here. Now, here's the thing.
Oh.
I like the theming of Mount Wario. I think skiing down is like a really, really cool concept. Kind of reminds me of the SSX Tricky games and all that. And I'm a really big fan of it. Unfortunately, in terms of gameplay, I don't like Mount Wario.
Really?
The thing about Mount Wario is if you get hit with anything at the start, you've already lost the race. Because this track is very much built and catered towards people who front run. So because of that, there's virtually no ability to come back in a race whatsoever. And it's really unfortunate. And it's really unfortunate too, because there's a lot of other things I like. You have a lot of skill expression with like the ramp trick right at the start.
Yeah.
Where if you turn right, you can pretty much skip the majority of the turn and trick to the side there.
Yeah,
you also have the section with the waterfall and the rocks, and I think that's also like really cool. There's a lot of things here that are really, really cool.
Yeah.
But ultimately, 99% of it doesn't matter because in the end, it just comes down to somebody who just drives through the track, front runs it, and wins anyway.
Yeah.
Because if you get hit with something at the start, then you've already lost.
I wouldn't necessarily say that there are a few opportunities you could catch up on, in my opinion, but maybe that's just me.
No,
Maybe,
there really isn't, Byron. Once you get to like high level like Mario Kart play in general, it's legitimately if you get hit by a green or a red right off the start, you literally cannot come back. There's nothing you can do. It's like, okay, put it like this. If you get hit at the beginning of Mount Wario, it's like getting comboed by 6 items on any other track. The comeback factor is that terrible.
that's where I think we'll have to agree to disagree on that.
As I said, I think it's a fantastic track otherwise, but like for me, the mark of a really good Mario track is the track that not only gives you options, but also like gives you the ability to stay at the race for the most part without being too like extreme, which there's 2 extremes there. And we could go a bit more on that later with 2 particularly extreme tracks that Byron knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. All right.
There's a balance.
Cloudtop Cruise. Yes, I'm going to put it in low tier, but I'm putting it at the top end of low tier. As, like, if you, again, this is one of those ones where, like, if you asked me a year ago, this would have been bottom tier, like, guaranteed. But I'm like, it's okay. It's a cool theme. You're on an airship. Only one other track has had a theme that, like, you're dealing with airships, and that's Airship Fortress from Mario Kart DS, and that needs to come back, but that's a conversation for another day. It's an alright track. Nothing really special except maybe that last like lightning, the like lightning bolt section at the very end of the track, heading towards the like beanstalk section in the starting line where you can take the leaf cuts if you have a mushroom. But it's an okay track, low tier, top of low tier for me, IMO.
So I'm actually going to take this a step further.
Okay.
I am going to, in fact, say it's a bottom tier track.
Whoa,
so this is probably the only track that isn't one of the extremes in terms of comeback factor that I'm going to place here. The thing about Cloudtop Cruise is I just don't think it's like inherently interesting or like super well designed. I think in terms of like the beginning, you kind of have like the mushroom bounces, kind of like you do in DK Jungle and whatnot. Yeah. I find those to be incredibly wonky. I don't feel like they work terribly well.
Yeah, some of the turns aren't exactly like great on this track.
This track is also very unintuitive in terms of like coming off a ramp, tricking, and then getting into your drift, especially the section before the cannon into the lightning pad section.
Yeah,
where you go past the airship. The lightning pad session is also kind of dumb because unless you have the lines kind of memorized and you know what panels are going to shock when and where, ultimately it kind of feels like it's more of a, as I said, if you know your lines, it's not an issue, but if you don't, then it's going to feel like a luck fest overall.
I guess. Yeah.
I just don't like that section of the track. The end section with the leaf is probably the best section of the track after you get out of the ramp. Yeah. But even then, like it's extremely punishing to get hit during any portion of the last section in general, whether it's right off the ramp into the end or right off the leaf section or something like that. Ultimately, I just feel like that this is a track that every time I race on it, I just don't enjoy it. And it's weird because it has a lot of elements that I look for in terms of what I think are really good tracks. But ultimately, I just feel like this track just is a mishmash of parts that do not mesh terribly well.
That's fair.
And it's a shame, too, because I think the theming and the track itself is gorgeous.
Yeah. To segue into tracks that we don't enjoy, my first bottom tier Bone Dry Dunes. Something about desert tracks. In all Mario Karts, I can never get with desert tracks. It's just, It's like, I don't think desert works that well for Mario Kart, in my opinion.
I think it depends on which one, but I do agree that desert tracks as a whole in the series have kind of continuously let us down for the most part.
Yeah, and Bone Dry, like I just don't enjoy racing on Bone Dry. The aesthetically looks great. And you could say that for a lot of the tracks. Aesthetically, it looks great. There's some cool looking stuff, but like I just don't enjoy my time on Bone Dry Dunes.
Okay. So Bone Dry Dunes is kind of one of those tracks that like has a really big comeback factor if you have like mushrooms and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not quite as bad as some of the other desert tracks on this list.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say it's probably the least egregious desert track on the list.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this as the top of low tier.
Really? You're putting that above Mount Wario. Interesting.
Yeah. The thing about Bone Dry Dunes in general that I feel like it's what makes it not like super good is after the beginning section, because I think the beginning section's fine for the most part.
Mhm.
We get past the ramp, we get into the turns, you look like you have two options. Like you could go through the boosting section with like the spin panels and all that, or you could go to the left and all the way around. But it's not really an option. One's literally like 6 seconds faster than the other one. There's literally no reason to go the other way unless you're just bad at the game, or like you just don't know.
And which way would that be?
Which would be going left.
So going not on the bones then.
Yeah, you pretty much have to go on the bones. The bones is like much quicker. I do like the fact that like if you have like mushrooms and stuff, you could go after you take the ramp, you could actually get on top of the I'm gonna call it the rafters at the very end, where instead of you're on the bottom, you can actually go up there and you could drive around it. I think that's really cool.
Kind of like towards the end of Shy Guy Falls.
Yeah, exactly like that. But ultimately, I just don't think that like that does enough to really help the track overall. Yeah. I think it's just like it's a very mediocre track for the most part. It's not great. It's not absolutely terrible, but it's not very good either. So I think low tier is probably where it belongs.
That's fair. That's fair. Bowser Castle, mid tier. It's a fine Bowser's Castle. There are better Bowser Castles in the series. And
I will agree with that.
There are worse ones. Like probably one of the coolest things about this track is at the beginning when it's like getting ready to count down, like the gate opens up.
Starts to open.
And that's incredible. And like as you can see in this image, like the fire comes up. That's fucking cool. Like,
yeah, the thing of this track is top tier.
About to race
like,
in a Bowser track. You are about to head into Bowser Land, essentially. But yeah, it's a fine track, nevertheless.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this in high tier above Thwomp Ruins, but below Twisted Mansion. I think that there are indeed better Bowser's Castles in the entire series. I would actually agree with that point very heavily. But I would also make the argument that the Bowser's Castles in the series have been some of the best tracks in the entire series in general.
It depends
on
it's
definitely got like a higher sense of quality compared to like all the Mario Circuit tracks, all the Luigi Circuit tracks, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I can 100% agree on that.
Yeah, I think that this Bowser's Castle in particular, I think it kind of comes more of like an obstacle course in the sense of you're really just avoiding like hazards that hit you and stuff like that. And I think that's a good thing in Mario Kart where you have course hazards that are outside of item play.
Yeah.
Because I think that lends to Mario Kart incredibly well. And I think Bowser's Castle is one of the tracks that does a fantastic job. I think it does the best job without feeling infuriating and you get hit with something like, oh, I could have played that better instead or something like that. But I think this is a really good Bowser's Castle track. I think the turns in particular towards the beginning and the middle are great. I also really like the section with the giant Bowser in the middle and he's punching the tracks and you could like trick off the like waves the shock waves of the punches.
That's really cool. That's a cool part of the track. Yeah.
And I also really like the end with like the mountain section, the rolling rocks. There's a lot of like skill expression there.
I've been screwed too many times on that fucking section.
See, if you know what you're doing, you'll never get screwed there. But ultimately, I think this is a really great track. I think it's one of the best few of the game. I wouldn't call it top tier, and I wouldn't put it above any of the tracks where I put it below. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's a fantastic track.
Yeah. From a great track in its lineage to IMO a disappointing one. Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road
Yeah.
traditionally should be one of the most, if not the most challenging, and one of the most insane courses in a Mario Kart game. And some of them have been insane. Mario Kart DS's Rainbow Road, Mario Kart Double Dash's Rainbow Road, Mario Kart Wii's Rainbow Road. This doesn't have that like insanity factor, IMO, of a Rainbow Road. Which is why I have it in mid tier. I could be inched to move it to the very top of low tier, if necessary. But
yeah,
it's in terms
I'm
of
with
it
you
being a
there.
Rainbow Road.
This definitely doesn't have the difficulty factor that you expect with your Rainbow Roads.
Yeah.
And I think that made it ultimately disappointing overall. That being said, on its merits as its own on a track, I think it's a really good track. I think in terms of like, like turns and whatnot, the first two turns in general are like really sharp and you have to like really know how to do your drifts and stuff like that. So maybe that's hard for a lot of players. But in terms of like coming off the ramp, you have the left and right, panels that either push you forward or slow you down.
Yeah.
You also have the choice of going the top path or the bottom path, but it's one of those kind of illusion of choices because you always want to go the right bottom path. It's just better. You also have a really interesting NISC shortcut off the bottom path where you could just drive off the course and land on another part of it. I've actually always really liked those kind of things in Mario Kart overall.
Yeah, that's pretty cool about this.
Ultimately, I think like the final turn it's okay, but it's not like great either. I'm gonna put this towards the top of mid tier. I think in terms of Rainbow Road, when you think, oh my gosh, this has to be insane, it's gonna be so challenging.
Yeah.
It disappoints on that front.
Yeah.
But if you remove the idea that it's a Rainbow Road track and then you just judge it on its own merits, it's a very good track. It's a solid track. You know what? I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm putting it at the bottom of high tier.
Whoa.
I just think that in terms of skill expression, it's a really good track.
Okay.
Now, as I said, it's really hard not to remove the disappointment from like, oh, it's Rainbow Road. I should just fucking die here. But like,
okay, maybe not that.
It's still solid on its own merits. You should fall off, or you should get wrecked by something. Yeah. That's what you expect out of your Rainbow Roads in general.
Yeah, it's Rainbow motherfucking Road.
So that is all 16 of the original releases tracks.
Yes. Nitro
for the base
Nitro
game.
Courses.
For the base game.
Yeah. We got 16 retro tracks.
Yep, that also came out with the base game.
Mumu Meadows. Top of mid tier. It's short, which I'm generally not a fan of shorter courses, but I think this is definitely one of the better short courses. And it can get a little chaotic at times, which I can be a kind of chaotic guy in Mario Kart. But it's just a fun track, and it's been fun since Mario Kart Wii. So nice, top of mid tier.
I'm actually going to place it in the exact same spot at top of mid tier.
Oh,
I think it is a pretty fantastic short track, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people the cows can get kind of annoying, but honestly, they're not really an issue.
I agree. They can get annoying.
And with the end, you have the option of taking like the ramp at the very middle, or you could just drift around it. You could trick off like the mole paths and whatnot.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I feel like the track is a little bit too basic for my taste.
That's
mushrooms are pretty powerful during the middle section. But if you look past that, then the track is honestly pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just really short. So, yeah, as I said, top of mid tier. I think that's a good spot for it.
Yeah. All right. Remember when I said about maybe like 15 minutes ago there was a better Mario Circuit?
Yeah.
Gba Mario Circuit. It's better than base game Mario Circuit. Retro Mario Circuit, Gba Mario Circuit. They did this track way better. And I think that's a pretty symbolistic thing you can say about a lot of the GBA tracks in this game, that they're much better than the original.
For sure, for sure.
And it's an alright track. It's a fun track. It's another shorter track, but I think it's fine. And I like that they used some lifts to lift up one of the corners of the track. That's something I don't think you'd see in any of the other tracks in this game. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, so I'm going to put Gbm Mario Circuit just below Bowser's Castle and in front of Thwomp Ruins. I think this is another track that really rewards skill expression in terms of like Nisk and turns and whatnot. Yeah. I really, really like the section right after you come off the ramps towards the start kind of middle area and you drift. There's like, if you have a shrimp, there's the boost pad, or not the boost pad, there's the glide pad to the right. That if you shrimp into it, you can actually ride that on top of the walls towards the very end, like right where before the end section where there's like the tires of the really sharp turn. You could actually glide on top of the wall over there and ride that onto the track. And I think there's just a lot of really cool things.
When someone takes that tire shortcut and they just push the tires into your way, it's the worst. It's the worst.
It's great when you got that like tire cut 100% down, and you don't have to worry about like hitting the tires or hitting them in a way that slows you down. But it does kind of suck when you just like don't do the cut correctly, and then you're just like, oh well, fuck, now I'm going even slower. Yeah, like, but I mean, that's another one of those things where I just have to say get good.
Yeah.
And I also like it the section. There's like, where like a lot of traditional racetracks have like that refueling section to like right by the starting line or whatever. Yeah, they do something similar to that right before the finish line with the boost panel to there, and I thought that was really cool. And there's a lot of mileage you can get out of mushrooms here, and I ultimately think it's just a really, really good track. It's definitely one of my favorite retro tracks. In general. Not my absolute favorite, just one of my favorites. It's a really good track.
Yeah. Soft spot. This track has always been a soft spot for me. High tier, cheap beach. This is great. This is probably the best beach themed course in Mario Kart, in my opinion. This is fun.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It's the best beach-themed one. Unless you want to count, Daisy's boat from, GameCube. But I don't really count that overall. Because it's not a beach-themed course. It's a boat-themed one, right?
Yeah, it's a boat-themed course, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm going to put it in mid-tier. I'm going to put it above Mario Circuit and Water Park, but below Mumu Meadows. I think the course is pretty good for the most part. There's a lot of options you have in terms of driving the water or taking the ramps and whatnot.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a lot of chaos in terms of tree placement, crabs, things like that. And ultimately, it's a very good course.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I just don't feel like it's an absolutely amazing course. I wouldn't say it's better than Rainbow Road or Thwomp Ruins. Or Mumu Meadows even, but I would say it's better than everything else that I've put below it. So I think it's a really good course. And as I said, these lists aren't final.
Yeah.
When we finish placing all of these, we're probably going to move a whole lot of it around. I could easily see myself bumping Mumu Meadows and Chi Chi Beach up to high tier, and maybe bumping some of these high tiers up to top tier. But the alternative could be true. I could easily see myself bumping down Shy Guy Falls and Dolphin Shoals as well. So,
yeah.
Let's move on to Toad's Turnpike.
Mid-tier? It's okay. It's all right. They did a good job bringing this track to Mario Kart 8. But I'm there's probably another N64 track you could have brought back that I would have preferred, but it's not a bad track to race on. But with most of the vehicle levels, it's all right.
All right. So I'm probably going to agree with that assessment. I think towards the lower end of mid-tier is where I would put it as well. Ultimately, it's not as interesting as like the premise could make it. And that's simply just because the vehicles are incredibly easy to avoid for the most part, and they move really slow compared to like the racers and stuff like that. And I think that just hurts the track in general. It's definitely not the intimidating, like, I could really lose here force that it was in the N64 version.
Yeah.
Especially going into like mirror mode, but we won't touch that here because that's a different game.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's a solid but basic track. I think it's cool that like you could like get on some of the vehicles have like ramps that you can ride up.
Yeah,
and then you can land on top of some of the other vehicles. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But I think ultimately it doesn't do anything that's like terribly interesting. It's really just a figure eight track for the most part.
Yeah. Well, time for me to continue to be a Debbie Downer on desert tracks.
Oh, well. Oh, yeah.
Desert. Like I've said earlier, I have my issues with desert tracks, though I like this more than Bone Dry. So, because there are a few cool mushroom things you can do, but that's about it. That's what this track is. Mushrooms, the track. If you have mushrooms, you win.
Yep. So there's not going to be any controversy here. I'm with you there. I definitely think this is mushrooms the track.
Yeah.
So you know how I said I like a bit of a comeback factor in my tracks and whatnot, where you get hit at the very start and you just lose?
Yeah.
This is the extreme on the other side of the spectrum, to where you're never winning until you finish the race, simply because of how strong mushrooms are on this track and how like you could skip 60% of it just by having mushrooms.
With mushrooms. Yeah.
And you don't see mushrooms and items like that in first place. So like that's it. I like comeback factor for the most part.
Yeah.
But I don't like it when it completely consumes the track, and that's literally all the track's known for. So
mushrooms.
Definitely this track is a bottom tier in my opinion. I don't even like it in terms of theming either, because I feel like in terms of like, you know, desert themed tracks, both Bone Dry and Cheeseland have better themes overall. But so that's neither here nor there. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I just don't think it's a very good track.
Yep. SNES Donut Plains 3. And like with most of the SNES tracks, it's like, how are you going to improve this? Like, nothing against the SNES tracks, but it's just like, it's okay. I'd probably put it above Mario Circuit at the very least. It also kind of has the problem of dry, in that it's mushrooms the track. I am
hard disagree there, but I'll talk about that in a minute.
Interesting.
Okay, so the thing about Donut Plains that is infinitely fascinating is, one, it's a really short track for sure, and I think that's something that both helps and hurts it.
Yeah.
And two, you have lots of options. So let's talk about the idea of mushrooms. Mm-hmm. You actually don't need mushrooms to take the insane shortcuts that people take. If you drift just right off of the kind of like the dirt right off the bridge at the very start, you could actually take that first turn that most people shroom over without using a single mushroom, and it's really fucking fast. So that's one thing that's really cool about the track, is it's just really fast overall. Number two, another thing that I think is super cool about the track is there's only 2 sections where you could get items. And the second one in particular is something that could be skipped past with the shortcut.
Yeah.
So, and it's also shroomless, by the way. So you always have the option of, if you're like running in the front, like, oh, I could be safe and I could go for the item, or, well, I want to shave like 5 seconds, so I'm just going to skip these items.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately something I think is very cool. I'm going to put this in high tier, just above Thwomp Ruins. I think this is one of the tracks that gives the players, in terms of like racing, choices. You get to make choices that will impact your race either positively or negatively but it's something that like it's kind of like playing an RPG with consequence-based decision making. You're gonna like make a choice and then you're gonna live with the result after, and I think that's really cool.
That's fair. I also like find the theming kind of boring.
I mean, I also have a bit of a soft spot for Super Nintendo tracks as well because it was my first Mario Kart game in the series.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of the better Super Nintendo tracks in general. Honestly, the Special Cup and the Super Nintendo was just loaded with really good tracks compared to like the other cups.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, I really like this track.
Royal Raceway, high tier.
High tier.
It has produced memes that I've enjoyed. There is a meme amongst the group of players that we play with on occasion that like whenever this track comes up, we pick it. I
contractual obligation.
Yes, yeah, aka the contractual obligation. It's a fun track to play on. Though fuck getting hit on the ramp.
Yep.
Because that could be chaotic. Sometimes not for the betterment of your race, but
yeah,
it's just a fun track. I've always had fun on this track.
All right, so this is probably going to be the first take that we really differentiate on, not in terms of how we both think the track is good, right? Mm-hmm. I think this is the best track in the entire game.
Whoa.
One thing, so let's talk about Royal Raceway because it's got a little bit of everything in terms of it's got skill expression, it's got a minor comeback factor along with that consequence-based decision thing I was just talking about in Donut Plains 3. Mm-hmm. It's got really, really good turns in terms of like, you have to be like really skilled. You have to take really sharp turns. There's also the NISC at like the middle section where you could NISC to the ramp that's on the left.
Yeah.
That I think that's like really good in terms of like skill expression. Mm-hmm. If you have a mushroom past the really large ramp, you could actually choose to skip past all of the items and just go to the left over the patch of grass to save a lot of time. But once again, that's a risky thing to do because you're not getting any items now.
Yeah.
So I think that's also really fantastic for the most part. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, this track is the track that does everything you could think of and like another track does really well, puts it all together, and it's just beautiful. It's just perfect. Like, there's really only one section you could get really messed up and screwed on, and that's the ramp section. But I think you have to have a section like that on almost any track.
Yeah,
because it's Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's Mario.
I think
Mario Kart.
This track, if you were to pick any Mario Kart track and say which track best represents Mario Kart, I would point to this one. I think in terms of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it's the best track in the game overall, and it's a contender for being one of the best track in the entire series. So this is going to be probably the top of my list. There are some tracks that compete with it, but overall, I do think that this track's just fucking incredible.
DK Jungle. It's fine. Nothing. It's not offensive. It's a good DK themed track that references more so the later Donkey Kong Country game because Tropical Freeze is not out at the time. But it's a fine DK track.
Yeah.
Fine DJ.
That's fair.
Track. I would put it above Rainbow Road.
Okay. So DK Jungle to me is at the top of high tier. It's very close to being a top tier for me, but I think ultimately what holds it back compared to Sunshine Airport, Toad Harbor, and Royal Raceway is there isn't a whole lot of skill expression here outside of both the drift turn that's at the very beginning where you could like drift into the ramp.
Yeah.
Where there's like a patch of grass and they get a trick off that. And then there isn't also a whole lot of like comeback factor. It's definitely a front running track overall.
Yeah.
I do like the two sections where one you could drift into the ramp towards the middle / start past the bridge.
Yeah.
As well as you could drift off of the course at the very end past the like glider into a kind of like rock formation that like stands out. It's like a sharper turn basically instead of riding the wall. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I just think this track does a really good job lending itself to like rewarding skill in terms of people who do a really good job like drifting and turning.
Mm.
But I wouldn't say it's quite top tier. I think it's missing something that puts it in that upper echelon of like amazing courses.
That's fair. That is fair. All right, DS Wario Stadium. Welcome to the high tier. Welcome to the high tier zone. Now, I prefer the original track. Now, maybe that's just me and me liking Mario Kart DS quite a lot. But this does a very good job representing that track, the spirit of that track, and the motocross of that track.
So, just an impression here. I'm starting to wonder if you just wanted a single tier just to put Sunshine Airport by itself.
Hold on. Things might get moved around. Remember that, Slade.
Yeah, no. I couldn't help but notice you got like a lot of really good tracks that I did. It's like you just see Sunshine Airport just sitting by its lonesome at the top.
Wait, this is a fun track. Just fuck that one section towards the ramp, towards the water section at the end. That like little like steel girder section.
Oh yeah.
Not a fan of that section, but other than that,
well, I said that's just one of those sections where you get Mario Karted. That's all it is.
Yep. Welcome to Mario Kart.
All right, so this is going to be my next addition to top tier. I'm going to put it above Sunshine Airport, but just below Toad Harbor.
Okay.
I might put it above Toad Harbor. This is honestly a really hard choice. I think Wario Stadium is a really fantastic court and whatnot. I really do like, in terms of like the course overall, it really rewards strong fundamentals in Mario Kart.
Yeah.
I like that there's enough, chaos and hecticness, and there's a lot of like knowledge too. Like the boost panels over like the mud section, you actually go faster by not tricking off of them until the last one.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think is really cool because the majority of people think tricking is just always faster 100% of the time. I really kind of like the ramps towards the middle. It kind of reminds me of like Waluigi Stadium from like older titles and Wario Stadium 64 with the ramps. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, bring that track back.
Where Byron says he doesn't like the section of the steel girders right before the ramp into the water. Yeah. That's actually my favorite part of the course. I think in general, there's a lot of things that like, in terms of like turning, there's even like a miniature cut there that's like really cool. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I just think this is one of those tracks that's like pretty basic in like what it does, but it does what it does extremely well. So to me, it's probably towards the bottom end of top tier. I said I do think it's better than Sunshine Airport, but I don't know whether I'd put it above Toad Harbor or not.
And I will say Wario has some great tracks.
Yes, he does. Wario has a long-standing tradition of some of the best tracks in any Mario Kart he has a track in, like just straight up.
Yeah. Sherbetland. Spun track, probably one of the best snow-themed tracks in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And I do like how in the original, there was obviously the holes in the ice where you could fall and like die in the GameCube game, but in 8 Deluxe, it's just a brand new path, which is pretty cool, which is taking something from the original and enhancing the track.
Yeah, to be fair, that alternative path is pretty awful, though.
Yeah, but still,
at the beginning. So, like, you might as well die. But, like, towards the end, I think it's really cool. I think, ultimately, you're right. This is one of the better ice tracks in the entire series.
Yeah.
I think ice tracks have struggled as a whole in Mario Kart. But this is definitely one of the better ones you could point to. Be like, yeah, this one's pretty good. I think it's a solid mid-tier. I would put it above Water Park. I'll put it above Mario Circuit, actually. Oh. I think... overall, it's a very solid track. I really like the turns. I like the beginning section where you go into the tunnel a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because you can do some like really sharp turns and like drifts and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I just like the section coming right out of the tunnel as well. Actually, you know what? The more I talk about how much I like this course, the more I think it should be higher. I think it's going to be just below Mumu Meadows for me.
Okay, that's fair.
So, as I said, very good track. Very good track.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Music Park, top tier. I really enjoy this track. The theming is great. The layout is great. Just when else has there been a music themed track? There hasn't.
Oh
been.
yeah, for
there
sure.
hasn't been. Though fuck the giant music notes sometimes. But that's Mario Kart. I like how they did the track. The music's great. Visually, it looks incredible. Top tier track. Top tier track for me.
All right, so we're going to agree there. I definitely think this is one of the better tracks in the game. I'm going to put it above Sunshine Airport. Maybe, I'll put it between Toad Harbor. No, I'm going to put it above Toad Harbor. I think it's better than those tracks. So I think this is probably the best track in terms of theme in the entire game. Like, even removing it from a racing standpoint, the fact that you could drive on, like, the piano notes and you can hear the piano playing.
Yes. Oh, that's incredible. That is incredible.
And that's not even the cool thing about the piano. The second piano section, you could actually drive off one of the flat keys, go off track and trick off of it, and like skip over a gap.
Yeah.
And like you could do some like really cool things on this track.
Pretty cool.
There's a nest with the ramp that's like right before that area as well, which I wouldn't really recommend it because you probably want to set up for the piano key skip, as I like to call it. But you also have the glider section right after, which is faster to be on the ground unless you're small, with the big music notes. And I think that's pretty good. I also like the cut at the very end with like the drum.
Oh yeah, the tambourine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tambourine.
I think overall this track is absolutely fucking fantastic. They really outdid themselves with Music Park.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the best tracks in the series.
Yep, absolutely. And as someone who was in band in high school, in middle school, and elementary school, yes.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where
this
is more for the theme that I'm rating it this high than it is for racing on it. Because if we were talking about just its merits off racing on it, I'd probably put it in high tier. But because the theme is just so phenomenal and fantastic, I really can't argue against it being like top tier.
Yeah. All right, Yoshi Valley. For now, I'm gonna put it probably mid tier. I don't know how they would have been able to do this. The gimmick of this track, for those who haven't played in Mario Kart 64, because the N64 was what it was back in 1996, you couldn't tell what place you were in. You couldn't tell what place your opponents were in until y'all crossed the finish line lap 3. I wish they found a way to keep that a thing. That would have been really cool. But it's still a fun track. You get multiple different paths, and then everybody like comes back together for the end. Sometimes they'll fuck that giant egg for the bridge, but it's still a fun track overall. IMO.
Yeah, so I was talking about like alternate paths, whether they do them really well, kind of like they did in Sweet Sweet Canyon or like Electrodrome or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there's just like some alternate paths like in Bone Dry Dunes where they just do it absolutely wrong because it's not an alternate path. There's a right path and a wrong path because one's just clearly much faster than the other one.
Yeah.
Yoshi Valley somewhat struggles in this regard from having a clear right path and a clear like wrong path.
Yeah.
The original suffered from this as well. The gimmick was it was supposed to be like a maze where you were supposed to like find your way through the level and get to the end.
Yeah.
And because of like the twists and turns and how far the last could read, the reason why the original didn't tell you what place you were in is because they couldn't tell you because the game itself couldn't figure out what place you were in and whatnot. So they decided to just shroud it in mystery to kind of give an element of like interest to it. But ultimately, that was because the game itself could not figure out what place you were in.
Because
that was a game's limitation more than it was a creative design.
Well, I would say more so the system limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this game, pretty much for Yoshi Valley, you have the choice of going through the ramp tunnels, I like to call it, instead of taking the upper bridge
Yeah.
in order to get coins off the first lap. But
Mhm.
every lap after that, it's pretty much just optimal to just hold sharp left off the first turn onto the upper bridge,
Yeah.
and then just take that path all the way to the end.
Mhm.
And it sucks because every other path is pretty much invalid compared to it because they're not at all comparable in speeds. If you go to the far right and you take the cannon, it just shoots you to where you would have been if you had just taken the bridge.
Mhm.
And ultimately, like, a lot of the level feels like filler instead of feeling like the intricate, like, crazy maze that like it could have been. If it was something where, like, if they randomized the layout of the track each time you played it, they could have played up that maze theme like super well. But
Yo.
ultimately, it becomes a thing where you just take the same line over and over again. Now, that doesn't mean the same line's a bad line or that makes the track bad.
Mm.
It just means that the track has a lot of filler. And I don't necessarily think that having filler makes a track better or worse. It's just there.
Also, thank you
So,
for putting that idea in my head. I now want like a randomized style track in Mario Kart 9. So
yeah,
thanks for putting that in my head now.
because they already do like random ramp layouts for like Excite Bike and stuff like that. They could easily do like a randomized track
Yeah, that
every
would
time you race on
be
it.
cool. But where do you
So I
put
think
Yoshi
that'd be
Valley?
fascinating.
Yeah.
But okay, so now let's give the consensus opinion from me. I think this is going to be at the bottom of high tier, just above Rainbow Road. I still think the track is great overall because you still have to really keep an eye on your resources. There's a really strong shroom cut at the very end.
Yeah.
I think, the turns are still very interesting, as well as like the items are spread out enough to where it's interesting.
Mhm.
The track has a lot of filler, but I don't think that necessarily holds the track back.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's a solid high tier. I think it's a solid high tier track.
Yeah. My Mario Kart DS love about to show up again.
TikTok clock.
I think TikTok Clock is a high tier track. Again, it's yet again another theme that hasn't really been done. It's just it's a fun course. There are some cool cuts you can take with the clock hands, and it's just fun, and it embodies a cool gimmick in the fact that you're
For sure.
racing basically in Mario 64's TikTok Clock level.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to draw the comparison to. I really think it's like an expanded version of the TikTok clock theme from Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
I do think it's a very good theme. Now, the track itself, I feel like is admittedly kind of basic.
Yeah.
You have like the turning hands that you could trick off of, and as well as like a very small miniature like time saving cut.
Yeah.
But ultimately, outside of like turning gears and whatnot, this kind of feels like a continuation of like the kind of level design that like uh, Toad's Factory for Mario Kart Wii had a little bit.
Mhm.
But ultimately, overall, I think this is just a really good mid tier track. I would probably put it at the top of mid tier, probably bump it up. But ultimately, I just don't think that like this track does anything absolutely terribly interesting in terms of racing on it.
That's
It
fair.
just looks really neat.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Piranha
Plant
Slide.
This, to me, it's a very good representative of middle of the middle road. It's got a decent gimmick that you're basically racing in the equivalent of 1-2 from Mario Bros. Super Mario.
Uh-huh.
But it's just like it's an okay track. Nothing too exciting, but nothing that's like desert levels of terrible.
I'll say that the music is an absolute banger.
Yeah, music's
Yeah.
pretty good.
The track's song is a banger.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually going to agree with you here. I think this is one of those tracks that's a very solid mid tier that I would put above Cheap Cheap and everything else.
Mhm.
The thing about this track I really like is it has the slide gimmick where you're riding along the water and it's pushing you forward. Kind of very similar to like the waterfall section of Shy Guy Falls.
Yeah.
I do think the track is really interesting. It's got like a lot of twists and turns and whatnot. There's a lot of like what I would call bait ramps where like they like try to entice you to trick on them, but it's actually a trap and it completely screws up your turn afterwards. And this last section where you come out of the pipe and you get shot at by the air and whatnot is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have like the shrimp cut at the very end.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I just feel like this track doesn't do enough interesting things to like make it a high tier track for me. But it's definitely a very solid track. And like I said, the music's a banger. So
yeah, that's fair.
I think this is a really good track. I'd put it in mid tier.
That's fair. Grumble Volcano high tier. Yes, you could technically say, oh, it's like a Bowser Castle. It's a lava level. And well, that's true. That's true to a point. You're driving through a volcano, and the cool element of this track, the gimmick, the standout feature, is that on lap 2 and 3, parts of the track fall. So you gotta be really careful. And I think that's pretty cool. I'm surprised there aren't more tracks that do something like that. But maybe it's something you can only do in like a volcano setting.
Yeah. So I'm going to agree with you. This is the easiest high tier of my life. I'm going to put it above Mario Kart Stadium, but just below Electrodrome. Mm-hmm. I think Grumble Volcano is a fantastic track. Like I said, parts of it that fall down are like really intimidating if you don't have like really strong lines and whatnot. Yeah. Not even just that, I also really love like the turning sections, especially past the start, where you have the high path and the low path. Like, I think they do a really fantastic job of like, you could choose whichever path you want, and there's not a large consequence for going one way or the other.
Yeah.
You also have like whether you want to take the upper ramps to get like double items towards like the end section, or if you want to go faster and go get like the single items. You also have, this is one of the things I think it hurts it and prevents it from being a top tier. It falls into that trap with the last turn where there's a correct path and an incorrect path. Because if you go to the left and you take the top path and ramp off of it, it's just much slower than going the bottom path. And I think when you try to create alternate paths like that, I think it's fine for one of the paths to be slower than the other one. Yeah. But there has to be some sort of trade-off. Like the other path should like offer you coins or something for slowing you down. Or if it does slow you down, it should be very slightly. But it's like, oh, but this turn's easier or something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even do that because it has one of those pyro flames that jumps around. Mm-hmm. So it's not even necessarily easier than taking the faster path either. So it's just objectively wrong in every sense of the word. So that's just one like minor complaint. I still think the level is fantastic and great overall, and I think it's a solid high tier.
Yeah. Okay, I might get some heat from people. N64 Rainbow Road. Now, hold on. Yes, I put it in low tier. I have my reason for putting it in low tier. I'm not really a fan of how they translated N64 Rainbow Road. Most of the time, I'm fine with some of the changes that they make to the retro tracks. If they make any changes. However, they turned N64 Rainbow Road into just a snake line. It's just like...
Yeah. So, spoilers, it's getting the exact same placement from me. It's going to be bottom of low tier. Yeah, this is definitely the worst segmented track in this game.
Honestly, they should have just made it like the fucking like 3 lap. It takes 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah, because I think that was actually something that was really charming about the original was the length of like how long it took. So like you couldn't feel too comfortable if you were in the lead, but you couldn't feel very comfortable if you're like way behind either.
Yeah.
I do agree that like it's kind of a flaw of the original overall, but I think limiting it to was honestly just 1 lap, segmented into 3 separate laps, is not good. I think the way they translated N64 Rainbow Road, they did a very poor job. And honestly, if they had just made it a 2-lap course instead of like a 3-lap course,
Yeah.
it could have been like really, really good, but they didn't do that. So
I would have been perfectly fine with it if it was like, okay, it's the original, but it's 2 laps instead of 3. If you want
because at that point, it would still feel long enough to where it feels like a full course, without feeling obnoxiously long like the original did. So
that's something I could perfectly accept.
And we know there's precedence for this because for GameCube Wario Stadium,
Wario Coliseum,
I should say. Yeah. That was a 2-lap track. That was also pretty massive.
Yeah.
And it's something that, like, if that had been in the N64 version of the game, that would have been 3 laps. It would have been crazy long. But they learned from their initial lesson with Rainbow Road 64.
Yeah.
And they cut a whole lap out of that. And we know that in this game, they could vary the amount of laps that are put on these tracks because Baby Park has 7 laps. So
we'll talk about that track later.
Yeah. So it's really unfortunate that this is how they decided to translate it. Even with this very apparent flaw, it's still not a bottom tier track because if you look at the track off of its own merits, ignoring the fact that it's a segmented 1-lap track, it's still a pretty good track.
I disagree.
I think it also suffers from the same thing of Mount Wario, where if you get hit at the beginning, you just don't win. You just straight up lose. There's no comeback factor whatsoever. And it's one of those like extremes on one end of the spectrum that I just don't like. So,
and for me, nothing really happens on Rainbow Road. At least from what I've played, nobody really gets like that fucked unless you do get fucked.
Get hit at the beginning. Yeah, basically, if you get hit at the beginning, it's over.
Yeah, it's just
but like any other section, it's fine.
It's just like, nothing really happens. And that's all of the base game tracks for Mario Kart 8. But obviously, this is the 8 Deluxe. And now so we're including the DLC. Yoshi Circuit.
All right. So starting off with a good one, but let's see what your opinion is on it.
Mid-tier. It's fine. It's a good track. It's a character-shaped track, so that's kind of cool.
Yep.
They did take out a few things from both the GameCube and the DS versions. There were a few shortcuts that they took out, which I don't know why they did.
Because it would have been too insane and very mushroom-based had that been a thing. But they did leave in one that like really can change how the race goes.
Okay, yeah, they left one, but like, why take out the other though? Like, no harm, no foul. I get it.
It's
still a good track. It's still a good track though. Definitely better than Rainbow Road. IMO.
So we're gonna slightly disagree here. I think this is a high tier track. I'm gonna put it just above Thwomp Ruins and Donut Plains 3.
That's fair. That's fair.
Actually, you know what? No. Let's bring this down to mid tier. So I was thinking about it a bit more. I think the thing about this track is it's a degenerate track. It's very degenerate because this is a track that epitomized the style called bagging.
Yes.
Where basically what you do is you kind of just don't start racing at the start. You just wait for everyone to get ahead. Then you go and get 2 really good items, and then you just kind of go ham from there.
Or you could back up while everybody else is going, and then
get
go
coins.
forward.
Yeah.
Which
it's a very degenerate track.
That is degenerate. I have used that quote degenerate strategy before.
Like it would be a high tier track, in my opinion, if they banned the ability to drive in reverse here. Or if they like straight up saw that you weren't trying to race at the start, they just kicked you out. Because otherwise, like, I feel like that's a very degenerate track. And I abuse it too because it's hilarious. There's also a bit of a bug with the bullet bill on this track in regards to the shortcut. If you use the bullet bill on the shortcut, regardless of what place you use it in, of when you use it, you will get the maximum amount of distance the bullet bill will push you, no matter how many people you pass, regardless. So,
well, there's other tracks that have this too.
Yes,
so I wouldn't really say
this is probably the one that's most prominent.
Yeah, this is the track where that is the most prominent.
And with bagging be as strong as it is in this track, let's say you get your bullet bill in the back, you have mushrooms in front, you could just catch up to the entire pack normally.
Yeah.
And then again, the last lap when like you're second and third place, bullet bill to cut, and nobody will even be remotely close to you whatsoever, and you'll just straight up win.
Now, look, that can obviously help players who are in like the deep lasts, which is great. But
yeah, but like that gets to the point where it's like Cheeseland levels of comeback factor and whatnot, where it's just ultimately it's very degenerate. So I don't think that courses that kind of reward that behavior should be considered like top tier or high tier. But like, I still think if we were talking like, okay, let's say nobody ever plays degenerate on the track.
Yeah,
that's obviously a very good track. I do think it's really cool that like it's shaped like a Yoshi and like you have the one cut at the beginning.
Yeah,
that is decent comeback factor. I think it rewards skill too because like you have like really good like drift turns that can like skip over large patches of grass. And ultimately, a really good track. It's just a shame that there's degeneracy tied to it. It's kind of like the Wii version of Grumble Volcano, where you could just jump to the volcano on the left, drive 3 laps around the volcano on the left, and win the race.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a legitimate flaw, so it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Excite Bike.
Excite Bike. Yes, hot take, it's better than Rainbow Road and 64. It's better than the desert tracks. It might on some days even be better than Mario Circuit.
That's extreme. Okay, keep going.
But it's a dirt bike track, which there are definitely better ones in the series. Weird that it's a not Mario franchise, but that's another debate for another day. I do like that parts of the track change at random. But like there's a track that I think does like the like circle worse than this.
Oh,
but it's a circle. It's better than the other circle track, but
not by a whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we agree with the sentiment behind where you placed it, but not the placement. I am placing this in bottom tier.
Whoa.
And it's going to be above Dry Desert, but below Cloudtop Cruise. This is where I go into the other side of the extreme. So I've been talking about, I don't like courses that if you get hit on, then there's no chance you'll come back whatsoever. Kind of like Mount Wario, Rainbow Road, etc. This is the opposite. This is one of those courses where you never feel like you're in the lead because the comeback factor here is just absolutely insane and massive. Not the worst. And ultimately, it just comes down, this course comes down to what items you get. The gimmick of this course is there's a bunch of ramps that you trick off of and whatnot. And even though that's really interesting to have in Mario Kart, in practice, the gimmick isn't all that interesting because really you're just pressing the jump button every time you go off a ramp and whatnot. Character does a neat little trick and then you speed up. And it's really pretty much the same in terms of like, what if they just put boost panels there instead? You're getting the same thing. So I don't like the course overall, partly because of comeback factor. But I will say, I think it's really cool that they made Excite Bike into a Mario Kart course. It's just a shame that in actual play, it's an item fuckfest. Not sometimes the worst
sometimes IMO you need a track or two like that in the lineup. But
I do agree that every game needs a track or two like that.
Yeah.
But a track or two should be what it's limited to, and that's it. Okay.
Dragon Driftway. I will say probably about mid-tier. Mid-tier probably.
Yeah.
I like the aesthetic of the track. Give us a 2D Mario world like that, please.
Right.
A 3D Mario world as well that's not like Bowser, please. But it's an okay track in terms of like the track itself. There's a little too many turns for my taste, but like some people really like tracks where like most of the track is drifting, and I get that. That's not my taste personally, but I think it's still a good track, at the very least. I can't put it anything below mid tier at minimum.
So this is one that I've kind of have a hard time deciding where I'm going to place it. I think it's a really good track, and I think drifting is probably the most important mechanic in Mario Kart. So courses that reward really good drifting are really good courses, and this is definitely one of them. I'm going to place it for right now above Yoshi Valley and below Thwomp Ruins. I think it's a very good course. Overall, I think there's a lot of skill expression just in terms of like how you take turns and whatnot. And there's also even a slight comeback factor with mushrooms that you could take both over the ramp towards the beginning as well as like the sharp turn at the beginning. As well as at the very end, you could take that turn a bit sharper with mushrooms.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it's a really good course. I don't think it's terribly offensive. I know there's some people who's like, all it is turning. I hate this. And I'm like, but the turning is what makes the track good. Like, what? So, Dragon Driftway is a really good course.
Yeah, I can respect the course. All right, F-Zero. Mid tier, probably. Another mid tier, like. Hey, F-Zero fans, this is all you're fucking getting. I'm sorry to say, F-Zero fans, this is all you're getting. Now, and it's good representation, especially if you're playing 200cc. Like, I think this and Big Blue, which we'll talk about later, shine mostly in 200cc.
Yeah, I could agree with that actually for the most part. I think they also are really good 150cc tracks as well. But I do agree that 200cc is like where they're the best. Mm-hmm. Talking a bit about Mute City, it's kind of got that similar problem to Excitebike to where like its gimmick is just boost panels pretty much everywhere. And I think what differentiates Mute City from Excitebike is there's actually really good turns in Mute City, where Excitebike is literally just a circular arena. Mm-hmm. And I think if Excitebike had more interesting turns and design, then it would be much better. But ultimately, it's not, so it just turns into an item fuckfest. Whereas Mute City actually is really interesting because Mute City, there's only, I think, 3 sections of items. There's the item right after the initial boost at the start.
Yeah.
At the ramp. There's the item section right off the next ramp. Mm-hmm. And then there's the item section right before the end, which you could skip if you have a mushroom. And that becomes one of those consequence-based decision things that I really love in these types of games. Mm-hmm. I think that this is the top of mid tier for me. It's really close to being a high tier, but I think ultimately what holds it back is it feels like the race is 90% inconsequential outside of like getting hit by like somebody else's item, mm-hmm. because the track itself kind of keeps you moving along really quickly.
Yeah,
and as long as you're like pretty much decent at like drifting and turning, then you're going to have really good lap times for the most part. And I think outside of the shroom shortcut at the end, there's not a whole lot that's super like terribly interesting to like really spice up the level. It's weird because if I like looking at my tier list, this is actually probably my favorite mid-tier track and probably one of my 5 favorite tracks in the game. Yeah. I just don't think it's that amazing, like objectively speaking. But I really do like the track. I think the F-Zero theme is really cool. I think ultimately, and this is a bit of a spoiler, I think the other track does it better. We'll get into that later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alrighty, Wario Goldmine. Again, another probably mid-tier track. It's fun. It's cool that you're basically driving in a gold mine, which no other track has done, and I appreciate a cool gimmick and a cool aesthetic. It's an okay track, though. Nothing really too special, IMO.
Yeah, I like tricking off like the ramps and whatnot.
Yeah, that's kind of
skip over gaps. But it's really about the only interesting thing.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to go and spoil mine. We're going to have very similar placement here.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the middlest of mid tiers, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Like bare middle of the list. So I'm going to put it above Cheap Cheap right here.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot better than the original Wii version. The Wii version was really hell just because of the carts themselves.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's just kind of a basic track for the most part. I said, like tricking over the gaps and whatnot's really cool.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's about the only super interesting thing. Like you could drive and grind against like the carts for like more speed and stuff like that. And you also have the option of going left or right, but it's also one of those trap things because going right's always faster at the very end. Whereas in Mario Kart Wii, it was actually the other way around, which is really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the track is just, it's not great, but it's not terrible either. It's just good. It's a solid track.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
SNES Rainbow Road. Now,
this is where you want the difficult Rainbow Road in this game because the other two Rainbow Roads are not at all difficult.
Yeah. A few things that do dock this Rainbow Road. We've seen it way too many times already. IMO. We've seen this. I think this is the third or fourth game that this has been in. Like, yes.
You're not wrong, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a good Rainbow Road. It's the best Rainbow Road in this game, probably, IMO. But, like, come on. You could have put one of the other Rainbow Roads in, for Pete's sake.
So that's more just a gripe that's returning instead of, like, an actual mark against the track itself. It's just the fact that it's been in, like, 5 Mario Karts.
Like, it's a fine track, but, like...
It's going to be in the next one, too. Like, hard
no. Please, no. I hope it's not in the next Mario Kart.
Mario Kart
10, whatever.
So, where Byron says it's being in too many Mario Karts is a bad thing. Now, here's the thing about me. This is actually my favorite track in all of Mario Kart.
Yes.
So I actually love it being in so many fucking Mario Karts.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I can understand that people are like, who've played the Mario Kart series, like, man, I'm tired of seeing this track. Like, damn it, man. Can we get something else?
Yeah.
But like, after how dirty they did Rainbow Road 64, I'm not at all confident that they would do the GameCube Mario Kart like Rainbow Road or the Wii Rainbow Road any better.
Hold on. So, I disagree purely because those other two tracks aren't 18 million years long.
But well, this one's not long either. In fact, I would actually argue that this could have benefited from being like a 5-lap track instead of just 3. But I don't think it was necessary to have more laps for it. Yeah. I like this iteration of Rainbow Road a lot because you have ramps that are just the one ramp that you could like trick over like a massive gap towards the middle, and I think that's like really interesting. Yeah. You also have the ramp towards the end with the 2 swamps that like you could do some really cool stuff in terms of like trying to race really fast. This is my favorite track in the entire series, but I'm going to be objective as possible. Even though this is a subjective tier list, I think this is just a solid high tier track overall. It is the best Rainbow Road in this game. I'd probably put it right above Mario Kart Stadium, but below Grumble Volcano. I think in terms of outside of the like ramps, there's not really a whole lot going on here. Outside of like you get bumped into by somebody else, you go flying off the track and you just fall off. And not only that, but you also have like the ramp section towards the middle. That's not terribly interesting either.
Yeah.
And then obviously towards the end, you have to avoid both of the swamps on like the thinner like sections of the road.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a very good, solid track. And I still love the shit out of it. I can't get enough of it. So yeah, solid high tier for me.
Yeah. Ice Outpost, low tier. It's an ice track that's not really an ice track.
I mean, it's still got the like slick mechanics though of like ice physics.
But like, it's a fine track. It's cool that you can like swap from like one lane to the other, but I don't think it really takes advantage of its setting. The fact that it's in an ice river. It doesn't really...
I think what they were going for is kind of a bobsledding like themed track.
I guess, and if that's so, probably then here, I don't think, maybe they are, but I still think it's low tier.
So I'm going to disagree there. I do think that the track is really long, and I think that doesn't necessarily hurt it. I think it just makes it more interesting. The 2 paths is probably like the best the multiple path sections are done in the game, in my opinion. Probably because that's the entire gimmick of the track, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna rate this as a very solid mid tier. So I'm probably gonna put it above. Let's put it just below Sherbert Land. So I don't really view Ice Ice Outpost as an ice level so much as a dual track with a really interesting shortcut towards the beginning / middle, where you go off the track, off to like these glaciers, then you go to the left and you're on like more glaciers. I think that's really cool. So I think this track is also one of those ones that really rewards skill expressions in terms of like drifting and stuff like that. And I just think it's a very solid track. I wouldn't say it's amazing. I just think it's really good. So
that's fair.
I think mid tier is a good place for it. I think anything lower than that is just really harsh.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm
right.
I'm just not a fan of the track. Hyrule Circuit. I'm sorry, I'm just not a fan of this track.
That's crazy.
I am half tempted to move it to mid tier, but right now I'm gonna put it here. I don't know why. I've never had good luck on this track. Like aesthetically, this track is great, but it's like, like it's got a few mushroom cuts. It does have a cool thing where, like, if you hit the 3 anti-gravity bumpers on the stairs, it activates a ramp by the Tri-Sword. But other than that,
Master Sword, yeah.
Yeah, Master Sword. Yeah, Master Sword. Other than that, enemy. Now I know you're gonna heavily disagree. I guarantee.
Okay, so Byron already knows my opinion on it. I think this is an amazing track. So the theme is already like amazing enough as it because it's a Zelda theme track, which is honestly fantastic. There's like multiple nits that make this track like really, really good, as well as like skill expression with turns and ramps. You have the 3 spinny things with the Master Sword, but the thing is, that's only optimal if other people go for them. It's not optimal if you yourself go for them. Because the spinny things in the middle like slow you down. But if other people activate it, then by all means, go for it, right? So Hyrule Circuit is an extremely good track. There's a really, really good mushroomless shortcut in this at the very end, where if you drift to the right, you could hop over the giant patch of grass. You have to skip items to do so. And it's one of those consequence-based decision things. Once again, I'm going to keep harping on are really fantastic in Mario Kart because you're going to save time going over that gap, but you're skipping items. So you're making a choice there. And overall, as I said, the Zelda theme of this really hard cares. I like the fact that you're collecting rupees instead of points. And I think the fact that they have Deku Babas replace the piranha plants and stuff like that, it's just really, really good. So I don't think this is a top tier track, even though I lavished all that praise on it. But I do think this is at bare minimum top 3 of high tier, maybe even top of high tier. I'm going to place it there for now simply because I just like DK Jungle a little bit more personally. But I think between DK Jungle, Hyrule Circuit, and Electrodrome, those are all pretty interchangeable.
That's fair.
So very, very fantastic track. All right, so we finally got to the worst track in the game.
Now, while I am not a fan of these 2 tracks, and I dread playing on them, I'm okay with them. Baby Park, it's just like I like chaos, but I think this track is too much chaos. If you know what I mean. If you know, Excite Bike, it's not as chaotic as Baby Park, and it should not have been brought back. IMO, maybe not this time.
Okay, here's my opinion. I think it's fine that it was brought here. I think they should have made it a battle mode course.
Oh,
I think if it were a battle mode course, it would have been fine. But because it's like a race, then like it's terrible. And I think what they could have did if it was a battle mode course is if you complete a lap, it gives you like a really good item instead of like a terrible item or like whatever item you would normally get from battle mode. So it gives you like a top tier item when you complete a lap. So it encourages and entices people to race.
Well,
and if you even made it to where if you complete a lap both ways, I think this could have been an absolutely fantastic battle mode course.
In theory, you could
But in
just
terms of racing, it's terrible.
in theory you could just take away the grass part and essentially turn it into like an open field battle course.
Yeah, but at that point, that's just an open oval, and it's not all that interesting.
That's fair.
Whereas, at the very least, if you like entice people to gain items through completing laps, you could like do shit like that. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
I don't know, but I think we agree this is the worst track in the entire game. There is such a thing as too much chaos. The fact that you could be in first place and you're constantly around everybody else, whether they're in last place or whatnot, pretty much just means that you're never safe here. And I think that there's a little there could be fun in that chaos. But in terms of like racing and trying to win races, it's absolutely horrible. It's just it's not very fun when you're trying to win a race and literally shit's flying everywhere.
A pro tip, play on this track, bombs only. You are going to have so much fun.
Yes.
This track,
I think this is one of those ones where, like, if you're talking about, like, casually speaking, it's the best track in the game.
Like, yeah, like ultra like, casual. Yeah, it's
yeah, but objectively speaking, if you're trying to race and, like, beat people in races, it's terrible.
Yeah. Like, you dread this track coming up in the 3-track selection.
And it's crazy, too, because I didn't even feel like the GameCube version of this track was that bad.
Well, that could also be, like, there's 12 racers instead of 8.
Yeah, that's probably it. Because, like, racing in the GameCube version, yeah, it was pretty chaotic, too, but it never felt like it was this bad.
Yeah. Cheeseland. Cheese...
Whoa.
Cheese.
That's shocking.
What, low?
Well, the fact that it's not bottom.
I don't think it's bottom. I think, like, some of these tracks do, like, or just, I like the cheese theme. I disagree.
The cheese theme is cool.
I disagree that it's a desert track. It's not a desert track. It's a fucking cheese track.
Okay. It's a cheese track that has all the mechanics and appearance of a desert track. It might as well be a fucking desert track.
I guess. If it was considered a desert track, IMO is probably one of the better desert tracks in all of Mario Kart.
That's so crazy.
Well, spoilers on where you're putting it.
Oh yeah, this is the second worst track in the entire game. Actually, no, third. I think it's better than Tri-Ride Desert, but it's worse than Excitebike. This is the single worst comeback race track in the game. So basically, this track is decided entirely on whether or not you got mushrooms or not. And I think that's terrible. I think the theme for Cheeseland is like really cool. And I love taking people here to like meme, but ultimately, this is only a track you pick if you're losing to the same guy over and over again, and you just want to see them lose. This is the only reason you would pick this track. Oh, Lord. And the fact that you can single-handedly make somebody who's really good just lose the game just purely based off of like a track is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Oh. It's one of those things where it's like it's more degenerate than like Yoshi Circuit. Like it's super fucking degenerate. Like I would rather play on Excitebike than play on Cheeseland. Like it's terrible. It's a terrible track.
That's a take. All right. Wildwoods? Probably mid tier. It's fun. It's fine. Nothing too special. The theme, I guess, is kind of cool. Like it's nothing too special, I guess. So I'll put it probably mid tier. Probably mid tier.
I think Wildwoods is a pretty good track. I wouldn't put it in high tier, but I would probably put it just below Yoshi Circuit here. Mm-hmm. I think there's some really interesting things you could do. Like I think the middle section off the ramp, where there's like the rail you could grind on, or there's the water that kind of slowly pushes you down into like the section with the ramps. There's also a small comeback factor with the mushroom, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
At the very end, and ultimately, it's not a track that does a whole lot of like super interesting things, but it does enough things to where I would say it's a very solid track that I enjoy racing on. So I think solid mid tier. I think it's probably the best place to put it.
Solid mid tier. All right. Animal Crossing. Another I think mid tier track. It's fine. It does have the unique gimmick of being able to play in any of the 4 seasons,
Yeah.
though it doesn't do it like from your internal clock. But like, good luck trying to get that to happen. But yeah, I think it's cool. It's probably IMO the best non-Mario track in the game. I know you would disagree with that,
Oh yeah, I heavily disagree with that.
but I think we
But I
both
think
can
the
say.
Hyrule Circuit's fantastic.
But I think we both can say it's definitely one of the best non-Mario tracks in this. At least
we're gonna
I
have a
think
differing take there.
maybe. I'm gonna assume you're disagreeing.
So I agree with your placement of the Animal Crossing track.
Okay.
I do think it's a solid mid-tier track.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty hard carried by the fact that it has like the different seasons and whatnot, which gives it a lot of replay value other tracks just don't have.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the track itself isn't terribly interesting. You have like the drift turns. I guess if you drive through the leaves pile, you could get like the fruits, which give you speed. And once again, I love the specific kind of coin that they get from the Animal Crossing series, the bells.
Yeah,
I think that's really
same,
cute. That's really
same with
cool.
the F-Zero track. We forgot to mention that. You go on boost panels.
To get your coins, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the Animal Crossing track's a really good track. I would probably put it just below Wild Woods, but above TikTok Clock.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think... Why isn't I going there? I don't think that the track's particularly amazing, but I think there's a lot of replay value thanks to the season. If this were based on themes alone, it'd be top tier.
Yeah.
But you also have to consider you're racing on these tracks as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very solid track overall.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Neo Bowser City. Probably upper mid tier. Yes, it's turns. It's slick. I like the theming a lot. I don't think this necessarily should have been a Bowser track per se. So that's a little bit of a knock against it, but if this was like a few years ago, I'd be like, low tier all day. But no, I've grown to like the track a bit more. So I'll put it in mid tier.
So I like to liken Neo Bowser City to being like a kind of more modern or futuristic kind of Bowser level. Like instead of like having like, a feudal era, Bowser's castle or like a medieval version of like a Bowser's castle, like what you typically see from Bowser levels. Mm-hmm. I really like the fact that this is like a modern city. So I actually think the fact that it's a Bowser level and a city is really fantastic. I think it's amazing. It kind of gives you a dystopian kind of like futuristic look of what Bowser rule could look like.
Yeah, and
I think that's really interesting.
And I could see this theme being a new theme in like a 2D Mario in the future. So
yeah,
that'd be cool.
So moving on from the theme of it, I think in terms of skill expression and racing, this is the second best track in the entire game. I think this is where drifting in the turns is really done right. Somebody put it really well. It's kind of like a rainy Royal Raceway. And I think that's a very apt description overall, because there's a lot of similarities between the two tracks. There isn't a lot of NISC and shortcuts, which is unfortunate. And outside of like taking the ending turn like really sharp at the very end with the shroom, there isn't really shroom cups either.
Yeah.
I don't think that hurts this track though, because it's just long enough to where you can't just front run the track like mindlessly. You can still get hit by red shells, green shells, red shells, or blue shells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I just think this is one of those tracks that's just done so well that like it can't be anything less than top tier. Yeah. I personally think outside of like the theme of Music Park, in terms of racing on it, it's the second best track in the game. But the theme of Music Park is just so good that like I can't put it above Music Park.
Yeah.
So I think that it's honestly a fantastic track. And just a bit of a spoilers for like the rest of the video. Not a single one of these tracks are going to be rated anything less than high tier from here on for me.
Oh. Now I am Ripon Road, high tier for me. Probably no, not probably, the best GBA track remake in this game. You've got it's like you're in a child's toy room or bedroom. It's great. It's a great theme, fun track all around. I love how they recreated the track and improved on the track from the GBA version. Just all around a fun track, cool aesthetic. Just it's a good track.
Oh yeah, so I'm gonna go a step further. This is another top tier track for me. I'm gonna put it
Whoa.
above Toad's Harbor, but just below Neo Bowser.
Mhm.
Not only is the theme of this track absolutely fantastic, it's like a child's bedroom with all like the toys and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but you also have a lot of skill expression with the turns. The Mecha Koopas towards the very beginning and whatnot are kind of missing enough to where like you could run into them, but they're pretty easy to avoid if you know what you're doing. I love that the ribbon is kind of like bouncing up and down, so you can like trick off of it. There's also 2 shortcuts that really heavily reward skill, along with the mushroom cut at the very end. This track is just constantly keeping you on your toes, and you are always engaged when playing on it. It is one of the best tracks in the game. It's absolutely amazing. I don't think anybody can go wrong with this track. And honestly, now that my list is kind of coming together a little bit, I'm actually going to bump Sunshine Airport to high tier.
Okay.
But towards the very top.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay. So we have 2 more tracks left, Byron.
Yes, 2 more. Super Bell Subway. If you had asked me this a few years ago, low tier. Now, like high tier. High mid tier. I mean, it's a good track. I don't like that it's like congested. I think it's a little too congested, but that's just my personal preference. It is probably one of the better like good luck dealing with these vehicle levels. So fun track overall. Fun track overall, mid tier IMO.
All right, so Super Bell Subway is one of my favorite tracks in the entire game. I think the one thing I really like about the last cup for the DLC is it's just large. It just largely rewards skill in terms of like how you drift and how you play the game overall. Super Bell Subway is one of those tracks that really gatekeeps players who aren't super good at Mario Kart. But when you do get really good, you learn your lines and whatnot. You learn to kind of like turn in between the inside of the turn and the subway train itself. And like you also learn how to take all the turns like super sharp, and like there's a mushroom cut at the very end that's really interesting. This is another high tier track. I'm going to put it at the top of high tier. I am really close to putting it as a top tier. But this is why I decided to push Sunshine Airport down. I feel like Super Bell Subway is just not like amazing enough to where I would put it as a top tier overall. But it would be the next best thing. So it's the top of high tier for me. You can't go wrong playing this course.
Yeah.
Unless you're just not very good. In that case, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, we've come to the end of the tier list. One last track, Big Blue, low mid. I could probably, it's like A and B. Like you could swap these two. IMO. Best in 200cc, of course. But with Big Blue, to me, unlike Mute City, nothing. It feels like it's kind of like N64 Rainbow Road. That it feels like nothing really ever like happens. But it's like not as much of that feeling as on N64 Rainbow Road. How about
I think that's fair. The comeback factor is kind of low for Big Blue, but we're going to disagree. I think that this is just much better than Mute City. And I also think it's better than the Animal Crossing track as well. The thing about Big Blue is there's a lot of skill expression in terms of shortcuts. You could go over multiple gaps after the middle section where you just start lap 2. That's really interesting. As well as at the very end, when you start lap 3, there's multiple gaps you could jump over, and there's a lot of shortcuts that, like, if you're really good and you know what you're doing, you can do a lot of stuff. It's kind of like Rainbow Road in this game in that sense. I think that it's probably not as good as Bowser Castle or Twisted Mansion, but I would put it above everything else as a solid high tier track.
Mhm.
I think in terms of the quote nothing happening argument, it's a lot better than getting hit at the very beginning of Mount Wario or Rainbow Road, because with Big Blue, there's still somewhat of a comeback factor because blue shells are not as uncommon as they are on Rainbow Road or Mount Wario. And not only that, but if you take the cuts really well and whatnot, there's a lot of comeback factor. And there's also just enough items to where like you could really come back on somebody. Whereas on those other two tracks, I feel like there aren't enough items, or they're just not placed well enough to allow any semblance of a comeback. It's one of those levels that also like really feels like 200cc was tailor made for it, kind of like Mute City. But I feel like it does a better job of Mute City in terms of making itself interesting and keeping the player engaged overall.
Yeah, I can
Whereas
agree with that.
Mute City is kind of just lots of boost panels kind of everywhere. So
yeah, I can agree with that, which is why I'm like, oh, depending on my mood, like I can swap between like, oh, Big Blue or Mute City.
But yeah, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and bump Super Bell Subway to top tier, but it's going to be the very bottom.
Oh, all right.
And then I think I don't need to move anything else around. I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But this is my final list right here.
Yep.
I think, like I said, there's a lot of really solid tracks, and really, like when you look at like the fact that low tier only has 3, and then bottom tier for me has like 5 tracks.
Yeah,
it just goes to show that what I dislike, I'm going to bump up Cloudtop Cruise because I think I was a bit too harsh on it.
Mm-hmm.
But you could clearly tell from my bottom 4 tracks that the most degenerate tracks are the ones I put down there. I didn't put down anything that was like, I just simply don't like the track for whatever reason. These tracks are legitimately degenerate.
And then you have me over here. I will make a few more moves. Cheap, top tier. Ribbon, it's pretty close to being like top of high tier, and I think for me, I think generally that is about it for my tier list. And we both have a few like bottom tier tracks, and we definitely disagreed on quite a few of these tracks.
For sure. But that's the cool thing about having our list back and forth.
Yeah.
We'll also link our tier list in the descriptions as well.
Yes.
So you guys can look at them individually at the end of the video. Also, feel free to comment on what your guys' favorite tracks are and which your least favorite ones. Tell me and Byron why we're both dumb and we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, why we're like both dumb on a track, or like why we both
like, or just endlessly praise us for like having the greatest opinion since Einstein or something. Like, either way, please leave a comment, leave a like.
Yeah, all that.
But
all that,
I think
all
that's going to be everything.
Stuff. Yeah. So this has been Byron.
And this has been Slade.
And we will see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.